Okay, so we're going to start with the 4 properties of a parallelogram. Can you name the first one, Tyler?
Opposite sides are congruent and parallel.
Perfect. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel. What is the second one, Kerwin?
Opposite angles are congruent.
Opposite angles are congruent. What is the opposite of opposite angles? They're called something with a C. Yeah, consecutive. What are consecutive angles, Kobe?
Angles that come back to back.
Okay, what property do consecutive angles have here?
Supplementary.
They are supplementary. Perfect. And then the last one, Jerome. Diagonals bisect each other. Okay? So, these are the 4 properties that we will use in this section. We're finishing 7.2. What you have on your notes, they're from your textbook. So, that's like, you know how you have easy, medium, hard. Okay, so your notes right now are like easy and medium. And then your student journal, I felt, were a little bit more difficult. So, we're just going to warm up to get to there. But before we do, I was grading your papers from Friday, and I told you guys you would need to know these names of polygons. And if you don't know them, I suggest that you write down the ones that you don't know. Because whoever wrote on the board all of the answers, I was still here when I got here, they were actually wrong on a couple of them. So if you wrote those down, you're out of luck on that. So,
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. Okay, so you can write down your own, okay? Write down the ones that you don't know. Obviously, we know 3-sided polygon is called a triangle. Okay, if you were in 3rd grade, you'd probably know that. What?
That wouldn't be fair, though, because we thought you wrote that.
And she literally said,
Yeah, she said follow us on the board.
Sorry, buddy. You should have been like, you know what? I wrote those down in my notes, and those were wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
What's the point of getting our notes if it's on the board? Because we thought you wrote it.
Because I didn't write. How did that look like my handwriting when I wrote in red, and that was in
I
blue?
mean, when you're trying to get work done with a sub, you just write that.
What's up? Okay. Continue. 4. A 4-sided polygon. Quadrilateral. What is a type of a quadrilateral, Kobe?
You said what type of quadrilateral?
Name a type of a quadrilateral. Andrew, help him out. You just said it.
Parallelogram.
Parallelogram. Ivan, you got one? A 4-sided figure. A square. Good. Listen to your voices in your head. What about you, Brandon?
rectangle.
A rectangle. Can anybody name another?
Rhombus.
A rhombus.
Oh, I like that.
Trapezoid. There's also called a kite. You see them as like diamonds. Anyways, those are type of quadrilaterals. We're going to do them eventually. 5-sided polygon is called a pentagon. 6-sided hexagon. I remember the number 6, S-I-X. It has an X, and so does hexagon. 7-sided heptagon. 8-sided octagon. 9-sided nonagon. 10 decagon. 11 hendecagon. And 12 is dodecagon. She had something else written on the board. It is dodecagon. So if you want to remember, hendecagon is 11. Hen is a type of bird. It's an animal. A doe, even though it's not spelled like that. Does anybody know what a doe is?
Yes, it's
a deer.
Female
It's
deer.
a female deer. Doe, a deer, female deer. Okay. All right. After that, Tyler, bring it in. After that, you can say the number and gone. However, if you're taking a quiz or a test or anything of the like, and you have a 13-sided instead of 13 gone, if you wrote the actual name, I would definitely give you bonus points, and that's for any of them. So 13 is tridecagon.
That's easy. That's the easiest one.
14, I told you them though. 14, does anybody remember what the beginning was? It wasn't quad, it was weirder. It was like a game you play. You're trying to fit like shapes and other shapes. Tetradecagon. Tetra. 15 is pentadecagon, hexadecagon, heptadecagon, octadecagon. 19, I'm pretty sure is like in decagon. You'd have to look it up. But if you were to write those down instead of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I would definitely give you bonus points. Just FYI.
What if we wrote
Okay.
both down because we would thought that
You would have to show work. Like there's work to get to your answer, so you would get points for that. And then, see what I'm saying?
No, what he was saying.
Yes, dear.
What if we
That is
tried-
what he was saying.
What if we tried to do the extra credit, but we got it wrong? Like, we tried to get...
It's literally like if you were. It's on a problem where if I said that this shape holds 540 degrees, tell me what polygon forms 540 degrees. You would have work to do. Like you would have to solve it, and you'd get n equals. I'm pretty sure this is 54.
That's a hexagon. No, that's a quad.
I think it's a pentagon. Either way, listen. You're still doing the work. Like you divide by 180, add 2, you'd get n equals. I would still see that, and you would still get credit for that. Does that make sense? And then you try the name. That's all. You can write the number like 13gon and then try decagon. Does that make sense? You can do both. So if you get it right, you get it right. If you don't, then... Are you even listening, Kobe? Because you're glazed. Okay. All right. So we're going to do our actual lesson. What you're going to learn today is use the properties to find side lengths and angles of parallelograms. And then we're actually not going to do this portion, parallelograms in the coordinate plane. We will be on page, it's actually 204 in your student journal. You can go ahead and turn there. We're going to use that in a bit. 204. 204. 204. So we're going to get to the student journal. But right now we're going to use our notes. We're going to warm up to get to the student journal because the student journal is harder, I would say. So in this section, you're going to have to use the 4 properties of parallelograms to solve for x and y. All right. In this portion, it doesn't actually matter which letter you solve for first at all. So we could solve for x first, which is x plus 4. Is that a side, an angle, or a diagonal?
Side.
It's a side. And what do we know about sides? It's written in your properties.
They're all
Nope.
parallel.
Read it to me.
Opposite sides are congruent.
Opposite sides. Not all of them. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel. So opposite of x plus 4 is 12. Listen, I understand that it is very simple to do this in your head. All I'm asking is for you to write down the beginning work. So x plus 4 equals 12. Do not just write down the answer. This is math class. I need to see what in the world you're doing so I can see how you got that answer. So then you subtract 4 and x equals 8. I'm not asking you to show me how you add and subtract. Just write down how you started the problem. Can I get a capiche from you guys? Capiche. This is on your notes from your paper, so you should be writing this down. We'll get there in a minute. All right, so then letter Y, is Y a side, an angle, or a diagonal?
Diagonal. An angle.
It's an angle. All right, and the only other angle we were given is 65, which is across from it, or opposite of it. What do we know about opposite angles?
they're congruent.
They're congruent. So what does Y equal?
65 degrees.
65. So is your answer. This one, there's no work to show because there's literally none.
Yeah.
The second is using a lamp. If you look at the examples in your book, a lot of the time they'll take something that you would have in real life. How many of you actually have a lamp that looks like this? You do. Oh, that's more than most of my classes. That's awesome. My other class had none. And that's okay. That's okay. So on your paper, it's in black and white, but we're talking about this right here. Y'all see it better? The green? That's not very highlighted. Kobe, if I have to say your name one more time, you are no longer in this class. Focus. All right, so you have a parallelogram, which you could redraw if you really don't like the way it's drawn. And it's A, B, C, D. And then it says, As shown, part of the extending arm of a desk lamp is a parallelogram. The angles of the parallelogram change as the lamp is raised and lowered. Find the measure of BCD when ACD is 110. So, a lot of times when there's 3 letters, students struggle with figuring out where they're talking about. What letter, which of the letters, are you looking at when they name 3? The middle one, which here would be C. All right, so it says B to C to D. So you're looking at this middle. It says find BCD. So we're looking for that angle. And we're given ADC. So we're given ADC, which is 110. Are these angles across from or consecutive to each other? Consecutive, which means right next to each other. What do you know about consecutive angles? They equal 180. They add up and equal 180. So you can do this. 110 plus whatever C is, you can call it X or question mark, will equal 180. Subtract 110 from 180. And how many degrees is that angle we're looking for? 70. Okay, because consecutive angles are supplementary. So, if angle D is 110, what other angle is 110? B. If C is 70, then what other angle is 70? A. Okay? The last that we are going to do is on the back of your notes. And then we'll begin in our student journal. All right, let's say we wanted to solve for x first. We have 2x. Is this a side, an angle, or a diagonal? An angle, and the only other angle we're given is 54 degrees, and they are across from each other. So what do we know about them? They're equal. So 2x equals 54. Divide by 2. X equals 27. And then the second, we have 3y minus 1. Is that a side, an angle, or a diagonal? A side, and it is across from 20. So they're going to be equal. So we solve, we add 1 on both sides. 21 equals 3x. So x equals 7. All right, so we're continue moving up. We're going to go to student journal page 204, starting at the top. And I'll explain why it's a little bit different than what we've been doing. We use the same properties, but the problem is a little bit different. If you look on number 1, I see we have a parallelogram, but we also have x plus 18, 4x, 3x minus 2, and a y. So you have 3 sides that have an x and one side that has a y. Okay, so you know that opposite sides are what? They're congruent. But if I took 4x and set it equal to y, does that help me solve for x or y?
No.
No, it does not. So what you need to find first, if you know that x plus 18 equals 3x minus 2 because they're across from each other, what would we solve for first? X. So we know they equal each other, so we're going to set them equal. So x plus 18 equals 3x minus 2. This will help me solve for one of the variables as I need to find both of them. I always move the smallest x, which here would be just x. You're fine. So I have 18 equals 2x minus 2. Now I need to move that minus 2, and the only way to move it is to add 2. So 20 equals 2x, which means x equals 10. Okay, so we have found one of the answers. How could we use x to find out what y is? Okay, that was a lot. You know 4x equals y, right? 4 times whatever x is. Well, if we know what x is, we can plug it in. 4 times 10 is 40. So the side across from y is equal to 40. So what does y equal? 40. So y equals 40. All right, so that's why we have been warming up for this. Okay? Any questions on number 1? You don't need to. It just says find the value of each variable. So we don't need to plug it into x plus 18 or 3x minus 2 because we just needed to find x. So we had to plug it in here to help us find y. So that's the only reason. All right, so the second is very similar. If you look at the sides, you have 4x minus 3 and y divided by 5. If you set them equal to each other, you would have an x and a y in one equation. That would not help you. So what you need to do from there is just keep looking at the problem. I see you have 4x minus 37, which is an angle. And I also see 49 degrees, which is also an angle. They're opposite of each other. So what does that mean about them? They're congruent. So we could solve for x by setting them equal. So 49 equals 4x minus 37. So we're going to add 37. We're going to add 37. Yep, so we get 86 equals 4x. Divide by 4. Do we reduce in math?
Yes.
We always do. 43. Alright, so x equals 43 over 2. You can write that in decimal form, but you cannot have it in mixed fraction. Okay, so once we have x, what do you think we can do to solve for y? Plug it in. So where would it help me to plug it in?
4x.
Yep. We could plug it in for 4x minus 3, because if we find out what that side equals, we know that x divided by 5 will equal that as well. So I'm going to take that and bring it up here. So 4 times 43 divided by 2, what is it, minus 3. You could plug this in your calculator. I do not have one. But I get 86 minus 3, which is 83. So if 4x minus 3 equals 83, then that means y divided by 5 will also equal 83. So we are very close to finishing the problem. All right, so what's happening to y? Is it being added, subtracted, multiplied, or divided? Divided. It's dividing by 5. So what's the opposite of dividing by 5? Multiplying by 5. So you're going to multiply both sides by 5. So it'll cancel out on the left side, so you'll have y. You'll have 415. All right, and then there is the last one. Are you given sides, angles, or diagonals? Diagonals. This one's actually simpler than the first two, and here is why. If you said, if we have 2x plus 10, that's one half of the diagonal. The other half is 4x minus 2. So they equal each other, and we're able to find x. So 2x plus 10 equals 4x minus 2. Subtract 2x, add 2. 12 equals 2x, so x equals 6. All right, and then do the same thing with the other diagonal. 5y minus 16 equals 3x. I still always move the smallest x. What's the smallest x here? 3x. If I subtract 3x, or y, it's a y, sorry. We have 2y minus 16. If you have 3 umbrellas and I take away all 3 umbrellas, how many umbrellas do you have? You have none. What number represents none? 0. That is totally fine. Then you add a 16 on both sides. I'm running out of room. Add 16, you get 2y equals 16. So y equals 8. Numbers 4 through 11. You have a section just like this on your homework. So we're going to begin. If you look at 4 through 7, those are all sides because they're 2 letters. Or they're all line segments at least. And then the last 4 are all angles. Okay? So, PO is number 4. Is this a side or a diagonal? A side. And sides that are opposite are congruent to each other. So, what number side is opposite? It's 24. Alright, and then you have OQ. Is this a side or a diagonal? Diagonal. Diagonals are bisected of each other. So, it's going to be 14. Because the other half of the diagonal is 14. Then you have NO. Is this a side or a diagonal? Side, which makes it congruent to 26. Because it's a cross. PQ, side or diagonal? Diagonal. Which makes it 20.7. The second portion that are angles, this is the hardest part for most people. Okay, so I'm going to show you what they mean by this picture. Do you see how 68 degrees has an arrow and there's this curve mark here? It means all of angle N is 68 degrees. Okay, whereas down here you see 59. It's only the left portion of angle O. Y'all see that, the difference? Here it points to this whole curve mark. Here 59 is just between the left angle. Okay, so keep that in mind. So we have PMN. We're looking at the middle letter. So from P to N at angle M. Okay? The only other angles that we're given are 68 degrees and 59 degrees. Is 59 degrees the whole angle? No, it's not. So that really doesn't help you figure out what the measure of PMN is. But you can look at 68 degrees. It's right next door, which makes them consecutive. What do you know about consecutive angles? They're supplementary. So you take 180 and you subtract 68. Because they add up to 180, you take away 68 from 180, you get 112. So 112. Alright, then you have NOP. It's right here. It is not 59 degrees. It is the whole angle, and 59 is not the whole angle. It's going to be the same as what's opposite of it, which is 112. Alright, the last two, what letters do we have? OPM, which is the whole angle, and it's across from 68, so 68 degrees. And then the last is the hardest, I would say. N, M to O, which is this angle right here. So, parallelogram is made up of what kind of lines? Parallel lines. Yeah, they're congruent, but parallel. So if this line is parallel to this one, there is something we learned in this book, chapter 3. It's basically what we did a project on it and everything. If you have two parallel lines and a line that cuts through it, starts with a T, what is that called? Transversal. There are special relationships with a transversal, and one of them is called alternate interior angles, meaning they alternate across the transversal. What do you know about alternate interior angles? They're congruent. So that means that the angle we're looking for, NMO, is also 59 degrees. That's why 59 is there. Did you already get that? You're the bomb. Questions about this one? Abby did. Awesome. So, you are going to review this for 2 seconds. Properties of parallelograms. What is the very first one, Caleb? The very first property of a parallelogram.
Opposites are congruent. Congruent.
And parallel. You got it. Opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Kelsey, can you give me the second? Yep. Opposite angles are congruent. Kendall, you got the next one? Consecutive angles are supplementary. And then last, Christian. Diagonals bisect each other. Okay. So you're going to open up your textbook and you're going to begin on your homework. You have 12 minutes left in class. My clocks, both of them are wrong. So open up your textbook. You do not have an option. Open up. Page 372 and these numbers.